My name is James Stayte. I'm an illustrator. I work on a lot of children's illustrations and I draw comic books. And I work as the comic artist for Stormforce. I draw To the Rescue. I live in Bristol, and Bristol is it's a really nice city, and it's got a really great art scene. There's lots of cool galleries and lots of interesting things to see, and that always keeps me inspired when I'm working. So if I go step by step through the process of how I put together a To the Rescue comic every issue, the first step will be receiving an email from the editor. He'll send me all the information I need to get started. Then I'll read the articles and look at the photos. I'll learn about where the rescue took place, what happened, who was involved, which boats we used. I'll get photos of the location, I'll get photos of the lifeguards and the people that were rescued, and I'll get photos of the lifeboats and the equipment as well, so everything looks nice and accurate for the finished comic. The next step is to just do rough sketches, brainstorming ideas, looking at making sure I know what happens in each panel, what angle I'm looking at the action for in each panel, and making sure it's really exciting and making sure it's really clear so everyone can follow the story. You've got to make sure you know what everything looks like so the readers can understand what happened and how the rescue went. The next step is to do a rough layout. Now this is a half-sized version of the comic which is drawn quickly, but it's drawn clearly so the editor can take a look at what my ideas are. He can see how it turns out. He can let me know if there's any changes that he wants to make before I get started on the final artwork, to make sure I don't go too far and have to turn back and make a change. The next step is to draw the comic out in pencil. I'll draw it twice as big as it will be shown in the magazine so I can make all the details nice and clear. When I use the pencil, I'll be very light with the drawing so I can carefully erase anything if there's mistakes and if things need to be changed a couple of times. Sometimes I have to draw some of the panels separately. If they're very complicated, I'll draw them even bigger than the double size, and I'll shrink them in using the computer later. One of the things I have to make sure of is to leave space for the text that comes in later. I don't want someone's head to be covered up by a word balloon. Once the comic is penciled and everything is correct, I'll move on to inks. I'll use lots of different sized black ink pens, different kinds of nibs to capture different objects and textures. The lifeboats need very straight, smooth lines, people need softer, rounded edges, and the waves need a brush to really to give off that kind of natural feel of the waves rushing around the objects. When the artwork is complete, I'll scan it into the computer. The scanned artwork is put into Photoshop and I'll use a graphics tablet to colour the pages. You have to use a lot of layers of colour. You have to use a layer for the characters, a layer for the background, a layer for different effects like light or rain or splashes from the waves, and all of those layers sit on top of each other, kind of like a big sandwich. When the final colour art is completed, it's time to put the text on. I'll write short captions for each panel so the readers can follow the story properly. I'll make sure to not cover up any important details with the caption boxes, and I'll make sure everything's nice and tidied and centered, and then it's time to send off to the editor. The editor checks it over, he makes sure that everything's correct, and sometimes he'll show it to actual RNLI crew members so they can make sure that everything looks accurate. When everybody's happy with the comic, it's off to the printer, it's printed up, and it goes straight into your hands so you can read it.